Well, it's not enough to say that my mother was my grandmother was born in Atlanta, and my grandfather my grandfather on my father's side was born in Venezuela, believe it or not. So don't ask me how all of this twists and turns begins to occur, especially in Harlem. My mother and father met each other. But the struggle that goes on in the South, where you have a growing amount of Latinos, and the history that African Americans and Native Americans have accrued in those many years, tells us that a united front is not only necessary, but it's important. If you're to win, rather than fight over the crumbs, that's the only way you're going to win and advance yourself. When we have whites, blacks, browns, Asians, whatever, as a united front, then you have a real struggle. If you divide yourself, then you're going to get picked off. I just had to say that because that's part of the experiences that I've had with Black Workers for Justice. Saladin and I go back 40 years, and when we were young whippersnappers then. And he's still going, and I'm still struggling. So Saladin, for the Southern Workers Assembly, Black Workers for Justice, come up.
Yeah, thank you. Let me say something. I think we all do the best that we can to bring forward a message. We're activists. We're comrades. So it's important that we're able to talk to each other, understanding that our intention is to refine and improve, and not to condemn. I want to thank Sister Comrade Charity for that showing. But I have to make an observation. No black voices. We have to be able to make these observations, brothers and sisters, comrades, because we got to look deep into these questions that divide us if we're going to come up with a strategy. It's not just a question, you understand, of always trying to find fault with things. But when it appears, you understand, that we are not being critical enough, in our examination, of the things that we do, especially when history, is very, 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 very critical, then, we got to be aware of that. So I want to say that in a comradely spirit, because, the sisters on the front line is a battle, but, our unity, you understand, just can't be that. I'm going to tell a very brief story. In 1991, I was organizing some workers in Alabama and in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi for the UE. And we went out organizing, and I came back and debriefed and said, here's some of the issues, and some black workers said, they had some problems with this white supervisor. And the white organizer who was with me, he came in and he debriefed. He didn't say anything, but after the meeting, he said, Saladin, you're right. They said the same thing to me. I said, why didn't you debrief it? Because it always comes across, you understand, like, well, here go this black guy just always trying to look for something to accuse some white people of being racist. And I find myself, being left with that responsibility and wondering, you understand, how people view, my perspective on the need for unity of the working class, of all workers. But I think, there's got to be some more sensitivity on that question. That's, also what happens in the South. Sometimes we talk about organizing the South, and we don't talk about those particular questions that divide the working class. We just don't talk about it. We just say that, we just need one straight, one straight thing, and it don't have to be the application of it. We don't have to talk about that. I belong to a union that's probably about 95% black African American workers. It's not because we put flyers out, saying black workers join the union. We put flyers out saying, if you got problems, you need power, you need to challenge issues, join the union. Black workers come. We're always figuring out, how do you get more white workers? How do you do this? How do you do that? How are we going to be perceived in these things? Do we not go forward because a part of the history of the South, makes the question of organization a real question for black workers? Civil rights movement, people move for that, and people need organizations. I'm very concerned and conscious about that, and I think we all have to be conscious about that. We got to be conscious about that when we organize these conferences. You understand? We say, well, we got 100 people coming. That's good. Want to know how many people coming from the South? What kind of special outreach has been made to deal with that? How many black workers? How many Latino workers? How many? What are the special efforts that we're making? I'm not talking about making no concessions or treating people like any prima donnas, but we understand, that the building of the unity of the working class requires some hard and serious work. It really does. And so, that it is this challenge from the standpoint of organizing the South, which is, my comments is not even reflective of what I wrote. So, but this is a real question about organizing the South. The question of balance of power, we talk about leverage and these kind of things. If leverage has nothing to do with balance of power, how our strategy positions itself, to challenge capital, to put capital on a defensive, to exploit its contradictions, to deal, with the global competition that's going down in the South. If we're not looking at these questions, then even our perspective about organizing the South, is a very narrow economist, trade union perspective. It's not dealing, with these deep questions of building power. And building power of recognizing, that the most exploited sections of the working class in the South, we want power to make major changes. Not just to say we want to bring democracy back to where it's been. Back to where it's been? Not for us.
Hell no.
Back to where it's been. During the New Deal movement, there was a major jobs program, extremely important, but the struggle against racism was weak. Oh, you don't have to worry about that, it's jobs for all. But black workers were not being hired, in tremendously large numbers as others were. But we taught, the WPA, the New Deals program, but we're not dealing with these questions. If we don't deal with these questions, then what makes black workers, Southern workers necessarily feel that that's going to really address the deep problems that we experience as workers and oppressed people in this society, in this country. We got to address the question, brothers and sisters. You know, why was it, you know, that the labor movement did not want to associate Jim Crow lynchings as a part of global fascism? Why? It was fascist for us. It was fascist for us. They said, no, we don't want to do that because we are fighting fascism, you know, in Europe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and we don't want, you understand, you know, to lose our credibility, you understand, you know, in fighting fascism there, you know, by equating this situation over and over and over and over and over and over again. You know, this mindset about how America is going to be perceived, you know, if we raise particular issues. This is what many Southern workers feel. When I came to North Carolina, where my mother is from, and my partner of 47 years is from, and it was talking about issues, the boss said, you're not from here, are you? I wonder whether he was, you know, picking up my accent or what. You know, no, he was picking up the stance that I was taking. And that's what happened. You're not from here, are you? And so the mindset of many workers is that unions are from the South. I didn't know when I was growing up that Fred Douglass, and both his son and Fred Douglass in particular, was the vice president of the National Colored Labor Union. Didn't know it. Didn't know, you understand, that evolved out of a period of Reconstruction that helped to shape my identity, and that labor was a part of that. Didn't know that. You know, so that I could have ownership in this question. Didn't know that the majority of black workers who came into unions were brought into unions in the 1800s by the National Colored Labor Union, and the sleeping car porters, largely black-led unions. Didn't know that. You know, if I would have known that, I wouldn't have felt, you understand, that unions were somehow foreign, you know, to my people, to my culture, to my class, to my history. So, you know, we got to be, you know, really conscious, brothers and sisters, you know, when we thinking about the South, even when we talk about right to work. Most of the legislation of most of the southern states were passed during Jim Crow.
That's right. When
we couldn't even vote, we couldn't even challenge it. You know, it is an extension. It is extension of this history in the South. It's not exactly the same, you know, coming out of the history of the North. And so when there's no yelling and screaming and everything about right to work in the South, and about the deep exploitation and the division that it has for us, but, you know, as soon as it happens in Wisconsin, as soon as it was like, oh, this is hell is falling in. What does that say to us? Oh, it's not important when it's impacting the working class in the South. It's only important when it's impacting the working class something else. We have a duty to change the mindset of the U.S. labor movement about the strategic role, the strategic importance of organizing the South. That's a part of our task. We got to do that in our local unions. We got to go to the National AFL-CIO convention. I'm in the UE, so I probably won't be one of the delegates. But we got to do that, and we got to change the mindset. And we got to use this period of this economic crisis and how capital has restructured itself to make the strongest possible argument, you know, that this is a strategic question that cannot be dismissed in this period. It shouldn't have been dismissed in the past, but it cannot be dismissed in this period. Thank you.